There is a sentence, written by a Frenchman in 1942, that has stopped more people in their tracks than almost any other in philosophy. And it does not sound like philosophy, it sounds like an accusation. There is only one truly serious philosophical problem, he wrote, and that is suicide. Everything else, whether the world has 3 dimensions, whether the mind has 9 categories, comes afterwards. And I want to be careful with you from the very first minute of this one, because of what that sentence is about. So let me tell you where we are going. Because the man who wrote that line was not recommending it. He was doing the opposite. This entire essay, the most famous thing he ever wrote, is one long argument for staying, for living. He starts at the darkest possible door, precisely so he can close it. His name was Albert Camus. He was writing in France, under occupation, while the world was busy proving, on an industrial scale, that it did not care about anyone in particular. And the question he was chewing on was the one underneath all the others. Given everything, given a universe that answers none of our questions, is life worth living? And if so, why? And his answer comes wrapped in an image you already half know. A man, a mountain, a boulder, condemned to push it to the top and watch it roll back down, forever. It is the oldest picture of pointlessness we have, and Camus does something with it that nobody expects. At the very end, looking at this man, trapped in the most futile task imaginable, he tells us we must imagine him happy, not coping, not resigned, happy. And the whole journey of this episode is earning the right to understand how he could possibly mean that. And I promise you this is not an abstract exercise, because you know this feeling. You have had the morning where the alarm goes and something in you asks, quietly, what exactly is all this for? The same tasks, the same commute, the same hill, pushed up every day, only to find it rolled back down by morning. If you have ever felt that, and everyone has, then this man wrote for you. So let us begin where he begins. So the first thing to fix, because almost everyone gets it wrong, is the word at the center of all this, the absurd. When we say absurd in ordinary speech, we mean ridiculous, silly, a joke. That is not what Camus means, not even close. His absurd is a precise thing, almost a mechanical thing. It is not a property of you, and it is not a property of the world. It lives in the space between the two, in the collision. On one side, you, a creature that cannot stop asking for meaning. You need things to make sense. You need reasons and patterns, and for the story to add up. It is not optional. It is how you are built. And on the other side, the universe, which does not answer, which was not built to your specifications, which runs on physics, not on justice, and returns, to every one of your deepest questions, a silence. Not a hostile silence, that would at least be a relationship, just indifference. The rain falls on the good and the wicked alike. The mountain does not know you are climbing it. And the absurd is what happens when those two touch. A meaning-demanding creature pressed up against a meaning-free world. Your need for sense meeting the world's refusal to provide it. Take away either side and the absurd vanishes. A universe with no one in it to ask is not absurd, it is just empty. And a person whose questions were all answered would not feel it either. The absurd needs both, the question and the silence, held together, not letting go. And here is how it actually arrives, because it does not come as an argument, it comes as a moment. Camus describes it beautifully. The stage sets collapse. You are going through your week, Monday, Tuesday, the rhythm carries you. And then one day, for no reason, the why arrives. The scenery you had stopped seeing suddenly stands out as scenery. Why this job? Why this city? Why this exact set of motions, repeated until I die? And for a moment, the whole apparatus looks strange, looks made up, looks like a set of habits with nothing underneath. That vertigo is not a breakdown. Camus says it is the beginning of consciousness. It is you seeing clearly, perhaps for the first time. So you are standing in it. You have seen the absurd, the gap between what you need and what the world gives. And it is not comfortable. It presses on you. It wants resolving. And Camus says there are two doors marked exit, two ways to make the discomfort stop. And the entire argument of the book is that both of them are a kind of cheating. Both of them he refuses. The first door is the literal one, the one in that opening sentence. You end the collision by ending yourself. No more questioner, no more question. The absurd is solved by removing one of its two halves. And Camus looks straight at that door, takes it completely seriously as a question, which is why the book is honest, and says no. And in a moment I'm going to stop and stand with you at that exact door, because it matters more than the philosophy does. But first, the second door, because this is the surprising one, the one that makes his argument more than a mood. Because the second escape does not look like an escape at all. It looks like wisdom. It looks like hope. It is the leap, the move where, standing in front of that unbearable silence, you decide that there must be something behind it after all, a plan, a purpose, a designer, a meaning that is hidden but real. Camus had a name for this, and it is deliberately shocking. He called it philosophical suicide. He put it in the same category as the first door, a death of a different kind. Because look at what the leap actually does. It does not answer the silence. It cannot. The silence is real. What it does is decide to stop hearing it, to fill the gap with a comforting story, and then look away from the fact that you filled it yourself. And notice, Camus is not only talking about religion, he is talking about any leap. Any move where you resolve the tension by importing a meaning from outside and then refuse to examine it. The grand political cause that will redeem everything. The belief that the universe has a plan for you personally. Any story that makes the silence go quiet by covering your ears. The first door kills the questioner. The second door kills the question. And Camus wants to keep both alive. So, before we go one step further into the philosophy, I am going to stop. Because we are talking about a real thing, not only an idea. And I would rather say this too early than a second too late. Camus is asking whether life is worth living as a question of the mind, a puzzle held at arm's length. But for some people, some of the time, that is not a puzzle held at arm's length. It is a weight sitting on the chest, right now. And if that is you, if that question has stopped being abstract, then I want to say something very plainly, and then I will get out of the way. This essay is not the tool for that moment. A philosophy video is not the tool. A person is. Talk to one, a doctor, a helpline in your country, someone you trust, tonight, not eventually. And here is the part that connects it back, rather than being a disclaimer bolted on the side. Reaching for help is not the opposite of what Camus is about to teach. It is the purest example of it. Because his whole argument, as you are about to see, is that the honest, clear-eyed, courageous response to the darkness is to stay and to turn toward life, not away. Asking for help is that move, made real. It is Camus' answer, with a phone in your hand. And his own answer to the question in that opening sentence, the whole reason he wrote a book about it, was no, do not walk through that door. Stay. So, with that held firmly between us, let us find out why he was so certain. Because to understand why he closes both doors, you have to understand what he is protecting. There is one thing Camus will not trade, one value he holds above comfort, above peace, above hope itself. He calls it lucidity. Lucidity, clear sight, the refusal to lie to yourself, even when the lie would feel better, especially then. And you can feel why the two doors both offend it. The leap of faith asks you to stop looking, to accept a comfort you cannot verify. And suicide ends the one who was doing the looking. Both, to Camus, are ways of putting out the light. And he has decided, with a stubbornness that is almost the whole point, that he would rather stand in the dark with his eyes open than in a warm room with them closed. And this is where he stops being a dusty philosopher and starts being useful to your actual life. Because you make this trade constantly, in small ways, every day. The relationship you know is over, but the story that it might fix itself is warmer. The work that is hollowing you out, but everyone respects the title. The comfortable belief about yourself that a single honest look would end. Every one of those is a tiny leap, a small door with a comfortable glow that you step through to avoid seeing something true. And Camus' demand, the hard, bracing, strangely energizing demand, is to stop doing it. To take the cold, clear, open field version over the warm, dim, closed door one, every time. Because only in the clear field can you actually see your life. And a life you refuse to look at is not really yours. It is just happening to you. Now, Camus is not attacking a straw man here. The leap he is arguing against was made by some of the most serious minds who ever lived, and the sharpest of them was a Danish philosopher who saw the absurd just as clearly as Camus did. He looked at the same silence, he felt the same vertigo, and he concluded that the only way through it was a leap of faith. To throw yourself deliberately past reason into belief, not because the evidence supports it, precisely because it does not. And Camus' response to that is one of the most cutting lines in the book. He says these thinkers deify what crushes them. They take the very thing that is grinding them down, the incomprehensible, the overwhelming, and they call it holy. They find a reason to hope in exactly what impoverishes them. It is a stunning accusation that faith here is not courage, but flinching, a refusal to sit in the discomfort, dressed up as transcendence. And this leads Camus to the strangest, most counterintuitive move in the whole essay, because he turns on a word we all treat as sacred: hope. We think of hope as the thing that keeps us going. Camus is suspicious of it, because hope, in this specific sense, always points away from here. It says, this moment is not enough, but later, elsewhere, something will redeem it. And Camus says, that kind of hope is how you miss your life, always leaning toward the next thing, the afterlife, the promotion, the someday. You never actually stand in the day you are in. So he asks for something harder than hope. He asks you to give up the future as a place where meaning is stored, and to receive, instead, the only thing that was ever actually real. This, here, now, without a promise attached to it. That is not despair. Despair also looks away. This is the thing between them that almost has no name. So both doors are shut. No leaping into comfort, no walking through the dark exit. You are left standing in the absurd, with your eyes open, and no way out. And the obvious question is, well then what? What do you actually do? And Camus gives it a name, his third path. The only honest response left once you refuse to cheat. He calls it revolt. And you have to be careful with that word too, because it is not a tantrum. It is not shaking your fist at the sky. Revolt, for Camus, is quieter and far more demanding than that. It is this: to hold the absurd fully in view, to admit the universe will never give you the meaning you crave, and to refuse to let that stop you from living fully anyway. To keep going, consciously, without the lie, and without the surrender. He has a phrase for it that is worth turning over slowly. Revolt, he says, is the certainty of a crushing fate, without the resignation that ought to come with it. Sit with that. You are certain the fate is crushing. You have no illusions left. By all logic, you should now give up. That is what that certainty usually buys, and you simply do not. You keep your eyes open, and you keep going. The refusal to resign, in the full knowledge that resignation would be reasonable, that is the revolt. And notice what this asks of you versus what the doors asked. The leap says, relax, it all means something, you can stop straining. Suicide says, stop entirely. Both offer rest. Revolt offers no rest at all. It asks you to stay awake, inside a situation you cannot fix, and to live it with everything you have, anyway. It is the hardest of the three, which is exactly why Camus trusts it. It is the only one that does not require you to lie down, and revolt is not the end of it, it is the root. Because Camus says that from the absurd, once you meet it with revolt instead of escape, three things grow, three consequences, and together they are his answer to how a person actually lives, after all the comforting stories are gone. Revolt, freedom, and passion. The first we have. Let us take the other two, because this is where the philosophy turns, unexpectedly, into something that feels almost like joy. Freedom first, and it comes from an unexpected direction. Because if the universe has no grand plan for you, then there is no script you are failing to follow, no cosmic exam you are getting wrong. Think about how much of your life is spent worried about doing it right, as though there were a correct version issued by someone that you keep missing. Camus says, there is no such version. Nobody issued it. And that is not a loss. That is a release. The condemned man, Camus notes, is strangely free. When the future collapses to a known point, the endless, anxious calculation about later stops. And what is left is an almost violent attention to now. Not freedom to escape your situation. You cannot. Sisyphus keeps his rock. But freedom inside it. Freedom from the tyranny of a meaning you were supposed to be serving and never were. And that opens straight into the third, passion, which is the part people never expect from a philosophy that started with suicide. Because if this life is not a rehearsal for a realer one, if there is no later where it all pays off, then the value of experience does not lie somewhere else. It lies here, in the quantity and intensity of what you actually live. Camus was a Mediterranean man. He loved the sea, the sun, the heat on skin, ordinary physical delight. And his philosophy comes back, again and again, to that. Not to transcend the world, to press yourself against it. The absurd does not empty life of value. It relocates all of it from some promised elsewhere into the immediate, physical, passing now. The taste of the coffee, the particular light this afternoon, the face across the table. That is not a consolation prize. To Camus, that was always the actual prize. We were just looking past it, at a horizon that was never there. So now, finally, we can go back to the man on the mountain. Because everything so far has been the argument. Sisyphus is the image that holds all of it in one shape. You know the story. A king who angered the gods, who thought himself cleverer than death. And their punishment was perfect. Not fire, not torture, futility. Roll this boulder to the summit and watch it roll back, and do it again, forever. The gods chose this deliberately. They understood something, that the cruelest punishment is not pain, it is meaningless labor, effort that leads nowhere, repeated without end. It is designed to break the spirit by denying it the one thing it wants, a point. And Camus fixes his attention on one exact moment, not the pushing, the pause, the instant at the top, when the rock is gone, and Sisyphus turns and begins to walk back down, empty-handed, to start again. That walk down, Camus says, is the moment that matters, because in it Sisyphus is fully conscious. He knows exactly what is happening to him. He has no illusion that this time will be different. He sees his fate completely, and that is precisely where his freedom lives. Because a Sisyphus who hoped, who believed that one day the rock would stay, would be a slave to that hope. He would be crushed anew every time it rolled back. But a Sisyphus with no hope, and no resignation either, cannot be crushed by the rock. He has already accepted it. It has no more power over him. And then Camus makes the move that turns the whole myth inside out. He says the rock becomes Sisyphus's own, his thing, his mountain, his stone, chosen in the only sense that matters, by being fully accepted. The gods gave him the rock as a punishment, and by ceasing to wish it away, by pouring his whole conscious self into the pushing, he takes it from them. It stops being their weapon, it becomes his life. And a man living his own life, even this one, is beyond the reach of the gods who sentenced him. So hear the conclusion the way he actually meant it. The struggle itself, toward the heights, is enough to fill a heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, not imagine him coping, not imagine him numb. Happy, because he is doing the most human thing there is, meeting a fate that has no meaning, and filling it with meaning anyway, by the sheer force of living it consciously. The meaning was never going to come down from the summit. It was never in the arrival, because there is no arrival. It was in him, in the pushing, in the choosing to push, as though it were his. That is the whole answer. And now you can see why it took a whole essay to earn it. And here is where it stops being a Greek myth and becomes Monday morning. Because you have a boulder. Everyone does. And the myth is only powerful because you recognize it. The commute you make and unmake every day. The inbox that fills as fast as you empty it. The dishes, the laundry, the same conversations. The work pushed up the hill, that is right back at the bottom by morning. Most of a human life is repetition, maintenance, things that do not stay done. We tell ourselves it is all building towards something, the summit, the day it will all be finished and we can rest. But some honest part of you already knows. The rock rolls back. There is no final Monday. The summit, where everything is done and stays done, is the one place you will never arrive. And Camus' question is simply, knowing that, how will you push? Because there are two ways to push the same rock, and they look identical from the outside. The difference is entirely on the inside. One way is asleep, resentful, leaning constantly toward a finish line that keeps moving, hating every step because it is not the arrival. The other is awake, present in the push itself, not waiting for the rock to stay, because it never will, but fully in the act of rolling it. Same rock, same hill. One is a punishment, the other is a life. And this is the strange, quiet gift at the bottom of a philosophy that began with the word suicide. It does not ask you to escape your rock. It does not promise the hill will end. It offers something smaller and far more durable. The possibility of being fully alive inside the ordinary, repeating, unfinished life you already have. Not after the rock, not instead of it, during it, with your eyes open. That is available on a Tuesday. It is available this afternoon. Now, this idea gets stolen constantly, and it gets stolen in 3 specific ways, each of which is the opposite of what Camus meant. So let us close all 3 doors, because getting this wrong is not harmless. The first theft is nihilism, the shrug. Nothing matters, so nothing is worth doing. And people quote Camus in support of it, which would have appalled him. Because the nihilist and the absurd hero start in the same place, no given meaning, and go in opposite directions. The nihilist says, therefore nothing is worth anything, and stops. Camus says, therefore everything I choose to value, I value freely, without needing permission from the universe, and begins. One is a full stop. The other is the first free breath. He rejected the label nihilist directly. His whole later work was an argument against it, that even without cosmic meaning, human beings owe each other something. That is not nothing. That is everything he had. The second theft is hedonism. Nothing means anything, so just chase pleasure. Eat, drink, indulge. The bill never comes. And people reach for Camus' love of the sun and the sea and stop there. But that misses the word that governs everything, lucidity. The passion Camus asks for is not numb indulgence, the kind that helps you not think. It is the exact opposite. It is intensified consciousness, feeling more, noticing more, being more awake, not less. Getting drunk to blur the absurd is just another leap, another door, another way of putting the light out. And the third theft is the subtlest, because it can wear the costume of the real thing. It is resignation, the tired sigh. It is what it is. Nothing I do matters, so I will just endure. But revolt is the precise opposite of that sigh. Resignation stops fighting. Revolt never stops. Remember the phrase, the crushing fate, without the resignation that ought to come with it. The whole point is to refuse the sigh, while fully knowing it would be justified. Resignation is quiet because it gave up. Revolt is quiet because it is concentrating. And there is one more piece that pulls it out of the private skull entirely. Because you might think all this is a solitary business. One person, one rock, one lonely mountain. Camus did not leave it there. In his later work he turned revolt outward. He said, when I rebel against the meaninglessness, I discover I am not alone in it. Everyone is on their own mountain. And that shared condition is itself a kind of meaning. Not handed down from above, built sideways between us. I revolt, he wrote, therefore we exist. And now, because we do not do hagiography here, the honest objection, because there is a real one, and the sharpest critics of Camus are not his enemies. They are people who took him seriously enough to find the crack. And the crack is this. Look at what Camus does across the essay. He begins by saying the universe hands us no values, no meaning, nothing to tell us how to live, total silence. And then, by the end, he is telling you how to live, lucidly, with revolt, with passion. He is recommending one way of being over another. He is smuggling in a value, better, while insisting the universe supplies none. And critics have asked, fairly, where did that come from? If there really is no meaning anywhere, why is living lucidly better than getting drunk, or leaping, or giving up? By his own rules, he has no ground to stand on to say so. One influential reading puts it precisely. At exactly this point, the philosopher gives way to the artist. Camus stops proving and starts painting. He shows you Sisyphus, vivid, upright, alive, and makes you want to be him. But wanting is not the same as being argued into it, and that is a genuine weakness. The leap from there is no meaning to therefore live like this is not fully earned. It is felt, it is beautiful, it may even be right, but it is not proven. Camus half knew it. He was, after all, a novelist first. And there is a second fair objection from the other direction entirely, from the very people he called philosophical suicides. Because they would say, you have described the leap of faith as flinching, as looking away. But what if it is not? What if the leap is not a refusal to see the absurd, but a response to it that is just as clear-eyed as yours, and simply concludes differently? The believer can say, I have looked at the same silence you have. I did not flinch. I made a different bet. And Camus cannot fully prove them a coward, any more than they can prove him a fool. Which leaves you, genuinely, with a choice, and no one to make it for you. So I am not going to hand you Camus as the answer. He is not the answer. He is one of the bravest attempts at the answer, with a real weakness in it, standing beside other attempts that he could not defeat, only refuse. What he gives you is not a proof. It is a possibility. That you can look at a universe with no built-in meaning and neither die, nor lie, nor give up. That there is a fourth thing you can do, and that the fourth thing might even be joyful. Whether you take it is yours. So let me give you the part you can actually carry out of here. Strip away the French, the myth, the wartime desk. What is left is small enough to hold in one hand, and it is two things: lucidity and revolt. See clearly. Refuse to lie to yourself about your life, your rock, your unfinished hill. And then keep going anyway, fully, on purpose, without waiting for a permission slip from the sky that is never going to arrive. You do not need the universe to hand you a reason to fully inhabit your own life. That is the whole liberation in it. You were waiting for a meaning to arrive before you were allowed to begin. Camus says, it is not coming, and you are free to begin anyway. Right now, in the middle of the unfinished thing, the boulder does not get lighter. That was never on offer. What changes is the one who pushes, from someone waiting for it to be over, to someone entirely here for the pushing. Same hill, completely different life. And I will bring it back one last time to where we started, carefully. Because we opened at a dark door, and the entire journey was Camus refusing to walk through it, and building, plank by plank, a reason to stay. His answer to the one serious question was to live, lucidly, fiercely, here. And if that question is ever more than philosophy for you, if it becomes a weight rather than a puzzle, the bravest, most Camus-like thing you can possibly do is refuse to face it alone. Reach for another person. That is not the leap. That is the revolt. That is choosing life out loud. So picture him one more time, not crushed, not weeping, at the bottom of the hill, with the whole absurd weight of it in front of him again, setting his shoulder to the stone, and smiling. Because it is his, because he sees it exactly for what it is, and because the struggle itself, the conscious, clear-eyed, chosen struggle, turned out to be enough to fill a human heart. One must imagine him happy, and then walk down and pick up your own. See what people hide, even from themselves.